Hello and welcome back, guys. This is Mohammed Arsalan, and in the previous lecture we studied about library and main function, and today we are going to start our practical number 2, and then we are going to use printf for the output in C language. So let's start and see what we have. The first, we are going to see that how to give output of integer. So we use the %d format specifier to print integer type. Here the %d inside the quotation will be replaced by the value of variable of an integer. For example, if I'm declaring an integer and it's test integer which is initialized by 5, and I'm going to use the printf, it's a built-in function which we have studied in the last lecture. So now I'm going to use a number equal, the same thing it is going to print it, and %d is gonna replace the integer right after I am using after the comma. So just to have an example, have a practical demo of it. So let's move on to dev C++, and I'm gonna show you how to do this. So I have written already the libraries in the main function. I am just directly going to make integer, and it's a test integer, right? And I'm going to initialize it by 5, and I'm going to use printf, and in quotation I am writing number. This area will be printed because it's hard-coded, and I'm going to use %d, that's a format specifier for integer especially, and then comma, and I'm going to use my variable again, and it's test integer and terminator. So as I press F11, so I'm going to see the results, and you can see that I have got the results of number 5 here. So just making a zoom to make it sure. Yeah, that's it. Okay, for the purpose of making a doubly sure, I am going to replace it by 15 or something, some other value, and gonna run it again, and you can see that the number is changed. It means it is working correctly. So now let's move on to next one. Okay, after completing with integer, let's move on to how to print float and double output. To print float, we use %f format specifier. Similarly, we use %lf to print double values. Like I am declaring float, it's number 1 equal 5.5, and double, it's number 2, which is going to be equal 3.5. And in the print statement, number 1 is equal to 4%f, and printf number 2 is equal to %lf. And let's have a demo of it as well. So here I am going to declare float number 1, and I'm initializing it by 5.5, and double by the name calling being number 2, and I'm gonna initialize it 12.5 or something, anything. And then in the printf statements, in this function I'm going to write that number 1, or I should say that float is equal to, so we are going to use %f, and with this \n I'm going to change the new line because I want to see both the result in different lines. So I am calling number 1, which is a float variable, and then printf again, and this time I'm going to say it's double, which is equal to %lf, sorry, I need to write lf, then comma, and calling it back with number 2. So the terminator again, and right after placing F11. So you can see that I have got the result as well here, and this is float and this is double. So right after completing this, let's move on back to our next one. Okay, the next we have, it's the character output. To print character, we use %c format specifier, and it's char. I'm going to use it letter 1 equal a, and printf letter 1 is equal to %c. So I have a demo of it as well. Okay, I'm declaring a variable, it's char, and char letter is equal to single quotation, and I'm writing a. Make sure you use single quotation, and in the printf statement So I'm writing first character of my name is, and I'm using %c and calling my variable which is letter, and press F11. So you can see here as well that we have successfully got the result. First character of my letter of my name is A. So what we have to do, we have to make sure and keep it remember that if we are using the format C specifier, %C specifier, so it means it is especially for character, not for integer. For integer you must have to use %D. You cannot use %C or %F for integer. The specified format specifier are only for the data types for which they are specified. That's why they are called format specifier. And now if we have to use two variables in single printf statement, like here is how we can use printf for showing output of multiple variables. Like in the previous lecture, in the previous example of float and double, I was using float and double separately in my printf statement, one for float, second for double. But here we are going to use one printf statement for both and different data types. So how we need to do this: integer 1 is for 12, float number 2 is for 21.5, and here this is the syntax by which I am going to use separate but two separate variables in one single printf statement. So let's see, have a demo of it. Okay, to do this I am going to call integer number 1, integer num1, and it's 5, and the second is float and it's num2 and it's 21.5. So I'm gonna call printf function. In this one I'm saying integer is equal to %d, right? And I'm saying and float is equal %f. So this is the syntax, and I'm using comma. So now I'm calling number 1. It means this number 1 is going to first replace %d, and then the second variable which is being called here, it's going to replace the second one. Like if the number 1 is here, so it will first replace %d, and then number 2 here, it will first replace %f. So use the terminator outside the braces, press F11, and you can see the results here as well. So this is how we are going to successfully use the printf function for putting the output of multiple variables. And after that we have some format specifiers for input and output options, for integer, for float, for short integer, long integer, unsigned long integer, double, long double, char, unsigned integer, long integer, unsigned long integer. So there are different format specifiers you can use by yourself as well. These are too easy, like as I have given you the examples. So that's it for today, and have a good day. If you have any questions, so you can ask me. Do write me back. Thank you.